and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick, with the City of Hampton's Communications and Marketing Department. And today we're going to talk about some resources for you would-be entrepreneurs out there, including financial resources, potentially. My guest is Tom Flake, Director of the Peninsula Technology Incubator.
Hi, Robin. Good morning.
Welcome. I think this is the coolest thing, what you do. And I have to tell you, I don't think very many people out there know.
I think you're right. I'm one of the luckiest guys, at least in Hampton Roads, because my job is to help people with a dream who are just genuinely optimistic, sort of find the resources to go ahead and make those dreams reality.
That is a cool job.
It really is.
It is. So, in fact, before we talk about resources or what other people, let's talk about some successes, because there have been a couple of successful companies that have grown out of your incubator.
Sure. So we've been in business for 2 years as the Peninsula Technology Incubator. And one of the companies I would point to as a real good success is Tevin Green and Citadel Logic. They're a government contracting firm, but they've literally got contracts now up in DC and Baltimore, down in Georgia, and as they succeed and create jobs, they're bringing money back into Hampton Roads. That's really a cool thing.
What do they do? Can you explain it?
So they do cybersecurity.
Okay.
And it's sort of complex, but supply chain certification. So they make sure that the pieces and parts that go into computers are what they say they are secure. So it's kind of an interesting niche. But if you're supplying or creating some electronic equipment, you want to make sure that it's not communicating information someplace else.
That's smart. Okay.
We got another company called Hubbard Innovative Systems. They've literally created an energy supply. Think of it like a battery, but instead of lasting like 6 months or a year like your typical battery would, this one would last like 20 years. So you would use it in places like pipelines or refineries or railroad lines to power sensors.
Places that are hard to get to,
places
where it costs more to change out the battery.
Exactly. So they like to use the example of the Alaska pipeline, which is 800 miles long. They say that you need not only a battery, but a helicopter and a gun to go change the battery. So a gun because there's grizzly bears and so on. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's really neat.
So companies like that are developing technology and new businesses that really, if they're successful, they're going to bring money back into Hampton Roads because they sell the majority of their product, their good, their service someplace else.
And so most of these people who start, it really is just one person, maybe two, and their assets are their head. I mean, basically, it's what they think up and develop. And then, so they come and they have this wonderful idea, but they don't necessarily know how to market or manufacture or whatever.
That's exactly.
That's where you come in?
You got it exactly right. Typically, an entrepreneur is somebody who is, I would claim, to be a technologist, somebody who knows, this is going to sound strange, but somebody who knows how to build a lawn chair. And so they think to themselves, well, because I know how to build a lawn chair, I should go into the lawn chair business. Well, maybe there's a customer for that, maybe there's not. Maybe they can raise money to get started, maybe they can't. Maybe they know about accounting or HR or law or any of those other areas of business. And so what we try to do is match them up with mentors and provide them with training and curriculum so that they can fill those gaps in their knowledge.
Because that is, you see that, I'm sorry to say, stereotype, but with engineers a lot. Like they figure something out, but in terms of putting it into they're not the business people necessarily. They're the brain people.
They are the brain people, and so not only the engineers, but here in the Peninsula, we're really blessed with a lot of scientists. People at NASA Langley, people at Jeff Labs, people that really have brilliant minds and create literally new knowledge, think thoughts that never been thought before. But generally, they're not thinking, oh, by the way, could I sell this? Could I commercialize it? Could I create a business around it?
Right. What is the cost to do it? What is the business plan? How do I market it? A lot of times they just want to go back and think up the next thing.
Exactly. And so there are a number of professors associated with the National Institute of Aerospace and NASA that come to PTI, and we help them out with that. In fact, Hubbard Innovative Systems that I mentioned earlier, that's founded by Dr. James Hubbard from the National Institute of Aerospace, who's also a distinguished Langley professor.
So you are physically located in one of the National Institute for Aerospace buildings, is that correct?
We are. We're on the third floor of what we call the Research and Innovation Labs, which was a new building that was built about 2.5 years ago. It was opened.
And so there's a lot of synergy there in terms of the sharing of information and technology and experience.
Yeah, and so it was a really, and I wish I could take credit, but it predated my involvement, but it was a really brilliant idea in that all the laboratories for the National Institute of Aerospace are on the first floor. And so you've got all that brain power, all those really brilliant minds. And then on the third floor is where the Peninsula Technology Incubator is located. And so you get this cross-pollination between the entrepreneurs and the professors, these really brilliant scientists.
Teaching there.
And the amazing, they share information. The hallway conversations in that building are pretty amazing.
I bet they're way over my head.
Mine too.
That's really cool. Now, you've been down the entrepreneur path before yourself?
I have been, yeah.
It takes a really special person.
Special is an interesting word that so you were very specific in the word you chose. I would say this. I would say the research from the Kauffman Foundation indicates that in an entrepreneur-dense environment, like, say, Silicon Valley or Research Triangle, there's about 4 entrepreneurs per 1,000 of population.
Wow.
And in an area like Hampton Roads, where we're not as entrepreneurially dense, it's about 1 entrepreneur per 1,000 of population. So literally entrepreneurs are a couple standard deviations out from the norm.
So how do we grow more?
That's a really good question. Here's what's a disturbing fact. This was on NPR maybe last week. They said that 2012 was 12% lower business formation than any year in the history of the United States. And here's what's disturbing about that. 95% of net new jobs come out of startups. So if we're not creating new business, we're not creating new jobs. And that may be one of the reasons that we've been slow to emerge from this recent recession.
Wow.
So the way in which you grow more entrepreneurs, and here's what's really funny, the statistics, the research shows that it's early exposure to entrepreneurship. So if you have kids that are in middle school, kids that are in high school, and in our generation, you were exposed to 4-H or junior achievement or something like that. Mm-hmm. Lemonade stands, newspaper routes. Well, if you go down that list, what you find is that, you know, in some municipalities, if you wanted to have a lemonade stand, they'd be worried about, do you have permits and licenses and taxes?
Right.
And so the kids don't do lemonade stands. The jobs in the newspaper routes have gone to adults. Mm-hmm. So the kids that would have historically done those newspaper routes don't get that exposure to entrepreneurship. Junior Achievement has changed their mission a little bit in the way in which they execute their curriculum. It used to be when I was a kid, kids would come together, you'd have some mentors, you'd actually form a business and do something. Today, they're more focused on curriculum delivery. 4-H doesn't really exist in any meaningful way in Hampton Roads.
It's very different, yeah.
And so if you go down the list, systematically, we've eliminated those reasons, those exposures that the kids had early on to entrepreneurship. And it takes 10 years, 15 years for that effect to be seen. So it's predictable that we're seeing low incidence of business formation, but it's going to take 10 to 20 years to fix the problem.
Well, I think you've got that, and then you've got this whole access to capital. I mean, being essentially cut off for the last 5 years. It's very hard, I would think, to get enough money to really get a business going.
It really has been historically hard. There are no committed pools of capital in Hampton Roads that are focused on investing in startup. And so it's very much a function of how deep is your Rolodex? Who do you know? Who can you reach out and call? Mm-hmm. At PTI, we've been very fortunate. In the last 6 months or so, we've had about $500,000, maybe as much as $750,000 of new investment in businesses in Hampton Roads. But that's not been the rule prior to the existence of Peninsula Technology Incubator. Before the PTI, it was very much sort of a catch-as-catch-can. And I can't tell you with any certainty how many companies got funded before that, but we've gotten good recognition, good kudos from people that say that's a good area of focus. There's 2 things to realize there. One is that there's stages of capital that companies go through. Usually when an entrepreneur, a technologist, this engineer that we were hypothesizing about earlier says, I want to start a business, the first thing they look at is personal resources. They have some savings in the bank, maybe a 401k, maybe they put things on credit cards. So then they run through personal resources, and then they go to friends and families and fools, we call it the 3 Fs, right, who will invest in this high-risk venture. And when that money runs out, then they look maybe for external investors. That historically has come from high net worth individuals, successful doctors or lawyers in the community. After that seed stage round, then you look for more professional money. And the more professional money is available, but there's this chasm where it used to be high net worth individuals would willing to, like a group of doctors would get together and they'd have an angels group and they'd make an investment. That's been the money that's been harder to come by in Hampton Roads.
But now one of the things you also have done is work with other tech groups and incubators and colleges to try to create a network throughout Hampton Roads that is supportive of
That's right, you've been doing your homework. You've been spying on me. We've got, I mentioned earlier this early exposure to entrepreneurship. That's really, really important. And having recognized that, we've actually started, there is something called the Virginia STEAM Academy that's sort of just coming out of the ground. We view that as going to be a great resource. On the south side, they're doing something called the Governor's School for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. That's just coming out of the ground in Norfolk. We've met with Junior Achievement to try and figure out how they can fit in. And in the school district, there's something called the Virginia Virtual Enterprise that gives high schoolers early exposure to entrepreneurship, different from, say, Junior Achievement. The problem with that, from my perspective, is that it's a random walk. You have to go to a high school that happens to have a teacher who was interested in that type of thing and sort of volunteers to put that program together. There's no mandate where that program exists in all high schools throughout Hampton Roads. Beyond that, we've worked with Christopher Newport University and Hampton University to set up entrepreneurship clubs. My understanding today is that the entrepreneurship club at CNU is now the biggest club at CNU. So that's a little bit of success in the last year and a half. And then all of those ideas from all of those students, as well as community-sourced ideas. I don't want to make this sound like it's exclusively the purview of young people, right? There are people that do it as a second career, as a second job, start a business.
And you almost have to do that to have enough personal resources to get going.
That's exactly right, exactly. And so we work with both groups, folks that are young and passionate and enthusiastic, and people that are a little bit more studied and successful and have some resources. And we consider that to be the top of the funnel, all of the ideas that come in. In October, we run something called Pitch Perfect, where we teach people how to, in 1 minute or less, stand up in a room full of 200 people and sort of explain that idea to people. That's not a natural act.
No.
And then
the elevator speech, some people call it.
That's exactly right, exactly right. And then in November, we run something called Start Peninsula. And then on Southside, they've got a series of events called Start Norfolk. But Start Peninsula is a weekend dedicated to surfacing those best ideas and getting resources put to them. So folks that can look at this interview online, they should be looking for the website, et cetera, because that information will be coming out in the September, October, as far as the whens, the whys, the wherefores. The first year we did it at CNU. Last year we did it at the National Institute of Aerospace, and this year we're planning to do it someplace up in Williamsburg, because our commitment to the municipalities is that we would move it around. When that's successful, the 10 best ideas get free access to something we call an accelerator. It's a 6-week intensive training program where we try and take that person with a great deal of technical skills and fill in the gaps in their knowledge. Teach them a little bit about accounting, teach them a little bit about financial modeling, sales and selling skills, marketing, how to position their product, how to go find customers. At the end of that 6 weeks, they emerge with a business plan, a financial model, a pitch deck, and a really good understanding of how their business operates, and then we put them in front of angel investors. Last year, 3 companies got $10,000 each. This year, we expect that number will be higher. But the idea is to get funding and resources to the very best ideas and help them move along. The very most aggressive of those companies right now, I mentioned Hubbard Innovative Systems. They're currently negotiating for work with a large national brand that you'd recognize. If they get that, it could be a $30 million contract.
Holy cow.
Yeah, we're very excited about that. And there's another company, Headcount. Their business focus is primarily second and third world countries. They're going to be down in Brazil for the World Cup. If they're successful in executing their plan, they'll come back from Brazil with about 50,000 clients.
That's amazing. So this also feeds into what we hope will be the new science park, Science and Technology Park in Hampton Roads Center North. You guys are already there. We've got buildings going up, shell buildings ready to land these companies so that they keep Hampton as their headquarters.
That's exactly right. Because, at the end of the day, Peninsula Technology Incubator is funded by the City of Hampton, and our mission is to create jobs and create wealth within the City of Hampton primarily.
And these things take a while. I mean, you've only been in existence for 2 years, but these startups, you don't really reap. They don't reap the benefits, which means we as taxpayers don't reap the benefits for a while. I mean, it's not like you get the idea and boom, you're a success.
We've started to gain some traction in our second year. But my estimation is it's a 3 to 5 year program before you see real sort of results. And frankly, if you're an angel investor, if you're a venture capitalist and you invest in a startup business, you don't expect to get your money back out of that company for 5 to 7 years. Mm-hmm. So it's a 5 to 7 year process where companies go from the ideation stage to where they can exit or monetize that in some meaningful way.
Okay, so we're going to have you back, to do a 3 to 5 year report. But we do have to wrap up. If you could mention a couple of the other physical resources that you have, in addition to the NIA laboratories on the first floor. You're getting a supercomputer here any minute now.
We are. The supercomputer will, as specified, be the most powerful computer we're aware of outside of DC or outside of Virginia Tech. So if anybody needs to do any kind of computer simulation or modeling, they can contact me or the National Institute of Aerospace. We've got 3D printers, and one of the things we do for folks is rapid prototyping. When they have an idea, if they can give us the appropriate type of file, we can actually print the part for them so that they can see what's going on with that. We've got wind tunnels and flow tunnels, laser and plasma labs, where we have the lab in the world that produces the purest form and largest amount of boron nitride nanotubes.
So fascinating.
We could go on a lot longer than the time we have available, but the resources through the National Institute of Aerospace, through NASA, and that the City of Hampton have made available are truly phenomenal, and I think underappreciated by the citizenry that don't know that we're there.
Well, I think that's going to be the case until it emerges well beyond that building, and until people begin to see employees and tax income coming out of there. It's very hard, and plus most of us don't understand 3/4 of the words you just said, like boron nanotubes. I've sat through a presentation and I kind of get it.
Yeah.
But
so here's what you need to know about boron nitride nanotubes, because you're like, what the heck is that stuff? It's the strongest stuff that exists. It's the strongest stuff that will ever exist.
Yeah.
It beats carbon nanotubes, and it's 100 times stronger than Kevlar, which most people are familiar with.
There you go. That's a good comparison. So thank you for coming and sharing with us today what's out there. And I hope all you taxpayers understand what the investment is and what the payoff is. But even more than that, I hope we've reached some entrepreneurs out there who are willing to contact Tom and learn a little bit more. Thank you for watching.